Hello, welcome to Wide Left Sports. Today I'm joined by Bozeman Gallatin basketball coach Michael Claxton. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mitch. Thanks for having me on. I know it's been a couple years, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be back on your show and be able to talk sports. I know you're extremely passionate about our neck of the woods here, our field of work.
I love all things sports and especially high school. I think it's really cool to highlight some of these programs and some of these athletes that are doing amazing things. And obviously Gallatin is right at the tip top of that. So I always appreciate when you're able to come on and talk about your program. So appreciate you as well.
Yeah, you bet.
So talk to me a little bit since it's been a couple of years, what it's been like those last 2 years that we haven't talked coaching at Gallatin. And I know I was at a game, I believe it was last year, maybe been the year before, for a divisional game. It was West versus Gallatin here in Billings. That was just insane. So just kind of talk about the last couple of years of coaching.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's been a lot of joy in working and being involved with the kids here in this Gallatin community. We've continued to just have, outstanding support from our parents, from the fans, from the community just in as a whole. And so it's been for me very fruitful just knowing that we have all the resources that are needed to run a successful program. Thinking back to that season specifically when you attended that game at MSU Billings, that divisional championship game. Yeah, we've developed some really strong rivalries within our conference, and we're getting familiar with the other side of the state as well. But we've been fortunate to experience some success and some growing pains along the way. And I really like the place that our program is in right now because we have a lot of interest and we have a strong commitment from our players, those that have been part of this program for the last few years.
For sure. Yeah, I just remember being at that game at MSU Billings, and it felt like a March Madness Final Four atmosphere being in that arena, and I can only imagine what that was like as a coach. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It was intense, I think, for players, coaches, the fan base that was there. And to be quite honest, I'm pretty disappointed that we don't continue to have that divisional tournament, as a state qualifying tournament. It was pretty disappointing to know that now we're in a playoff format because that tournament has always been great. And I thought MSU Billings was an incredible venue.
well, that was going to be one of my next questions because they have kind of flip flopped. When I was in school 10 years ago, they didn't have the divisional, and then
Mhm.
they went to the divisional, and now they're going back to not having it. And so obviously you're not a fan of not having it, but what are some of the pros and cons for having it and not having it?
Yeah, I think, if there's any, pros on not having the tournament would be that, the school districts don't incur the large expense of traveling, of, accommodations, transportation, food, everything
Right.
that's involved with participating in a tournament, in a postseason tournament. Um, but, on the other side of things, I think the major con with taking this tournament away is that not every high school basketball player at the varsity level is going to have an opportunity to experience a postseason tournament. With the number 7 and 8 seeds being eliminated, and not having an opportunity to play a playoff game, to play in a tournament. I think that's what, coaches even live for that.
Right.
We build our entire year and our entire season around, being the best that we can be at the end when it's all said and done. And so everyone looks forward to that. So, I just think for the programs that may not get an opportunity to play in the postseason, that's really discouraging and disappointing for them. And I also thought that it was a great lead-in to tournament play prior to the state tournament. so that you know, in the playoff format, it's a one and done format right now. So you either qualify or it ends your season. And so just having that experience prior to going into a double elimination state tournament bracket, I think is huge. Is so valuable. Just as I reflect back on the years before, prior to last season, which was the first year that we didn't have the divisional tournament. That experience leading into the state tournament was incredibly valuable.
I can only imagine. So, now I want to talk a little bit about the success of Bozeman Gallatin just as a whole, but especially the basketball. You guys are always in competition for the state championship. What does it mean to so quickly have that success as a program with you being, I mean, I know you're not a new school, but you're still fairly new.
Yeah, I mean, it means everything to us here at Gallatin, not just on the the basketball side of things, but just watching all of our programs grow, and build a foundation basically from the gutter of double A athletics to now being a school that's respected and competing at a state caliber level, year in and year out. And it's not just basketball. I mean, our soccer programs are thriving. Cross country's been great. Volleyball's been unbelievably successful. Football in the same category has had a great deal of success, on a high level. And so for us as coaches that started these programs and the players who helped to build that foundation. It means everything. I mean, even I know alumni that were here at Gallatin that now witness some of the success at the state level. I know that they have a lot of pride in that as well. And so it's been a lot of work, for all of our programs to build, to lay a foundation of stability. But yeah, it means a lot to us. And school wide, we have a lot of spirit and a lot of support of each other's programs. And I hope we can just continue to build this so that future Raptors, future youth athletes want to look forward to becoming part of the traditions that we're step by step building here at Gallatin.
I love that. So, you mentioned the rivalries that the Raptors have already started with, obviously the Hawks. And then I think West High is one of your guys' bigger rivals too, be outside of Bozeman. But you have those built in with the Hawks, then you have the Panthers in Belgrade, and then Butte's not far away. And then obviously the Billings schools are fairly close. How neat is it for you to have so many different schools that are some form of rivalry very close to Gallatin?
Yeah, I mean it's great. It's we have a small group of double A schools throughout our state. If you think about all the other classifications and what they're up against to get to a state tournament. But within those 16 schools, like we have intense competition. You can't step on the court on any given night and just guaranteed that you're going to win, so all of those wins are earned. Losses don't, you could lose on any given night, for a lack of better words. And
Yeah.
so it's, I don't know, I really enjoy the competition. We're very familiar with each other's programs, with each other's systems, with up and coming players. And so year in and year out, it's not a walk in the park to play, at the double A level. When I grew up, I played at Chester High School, so I was a Class C athlete that had to, jump through all of the tournament hoops to get to that state tournament,
Right.
district tournament. We had a divisional tournament, so some may look at double A as, oh, there's only 16 teams. It's not as difficult to win, to win a state championship or to earn a berth at the state tournament as it is at the small school level. But, to a certain extent, yes, but the competition is so strong. There's a lot of great coaches in our state that do an excellent job to develop not only, teams year after year, but the culture of their program. And so I appreciate it. I appreciate the competition, and I look forward to trying to see where we're at when it comes time to play against the best teams in the state. The rivalry with Bozeman has been nothing short of incredible. The support in this community, the student bodies, the fan support that comes out for those games is electric. I mean, some of the best atmospheres that I've experienced at the high school level. And then yeah, the Billings schools, West, Skyview, Senior, they're always tough. Great Falls, CMR and Great Falls High are not, to be taken lightly as well. And then, being in this valley, just being in the Gallatin Valley with Belgrade,
Yeah.
year after year, I think at some point it's gonna, all three of the schools in this valley are gonna be tough to reckon with.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Belgrade to have that beast awakened in over there for sure.
Yeah, it's been tough, it's been tough. I- they've had quite a few coaching changes, in not just in basketball, in basketball, football. It's been tough for them, but I know that population is growing. Their student body is growing in numbers, and I expect that at some point in time that they're going to be more competitive at the double A level, like they were at the Class A level.
Yeah.
There were many years there where, in multiple sports where they would make deep runs in the postseason.
Yes, for sure. So one of my questions is, you've obviously been coaching for a very long time. And so as you go year to year, do you have things that you switch from team to team, or is it kind of the same run of the mill no matter who's on your team?
No, we adjust. We try to adjust based on personnel, based on, the strengths of the team and where we might, need areas that need more attention for improvement. So we adjust. We have some principles within our program that we adhere to, that some non-negotiables. We're always going to be a defensive minded program. If you just thinking of how tough it is at the double A level, that semifinal matchup with Billings West last year, we gave up 40 points,
Yeah.
and normally you give up 40 points and you play, with that level of intensity on the defensive end, that level of intensity and focus, normally you win, but we're not the only team. We're not the only team that, that focuses a lot of their attention on the defensive end. And so we have non-negotiable principles within our program that we want to defend. We want to push the ball up early in transition. But year to year, when it comes to systems, the exact defensive fronts that we're gonna, bring to the floor, or um, our offensive system, like what we want to do with our continuity and what we want to do with our set plays, that changes year to year based on personnel. And this year we're not going to have the size and the same level of athleticism that we've
Mm-hmm.
had in the past couple seasons. So we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to adjust and play a little bit different style in order to be successful.
For sure. So I see a poster behind you and it says grit. Is that one of your guys' pillars?
Well, that's school wide. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
school wide pillar. And I have to actually, it stands for being engaged, respectful, being inclusive. So we highlight that I, and then being together as a school community. So that's just from day one when Gallatin opened. Gallatin Grit was part of it. And I think our athletic programs have embraced that, blue collar, put in the work, get in the weight room, put in the time in the off season, and then the results will follow if we do things the right way.
I love that. So another question I have is obviously Montana State is right in your backyard there in Bozeman. How helpful is that for your kids to see, that there's a college right in our backyard where we could go and play collegiate basketball?
I think it's an incredible motivator. Just thinking on my experience personally as a high school student athlete, I felt like Montana State, the University of Montana was a little bit out of reach, and in hindsight, when I see it now and just know, kind of how my career developed as a collegiate player, I think back to saying like, wow, what a motivator and what a eye open to see Montana State athletics here in our community to be able to go to Cats games week in and week out. Like I think for some of these athletes that opens up their eyes to say, hey, if I put in the work, if I commit myself to chasing after my dream of playing for the Cats, like I see guys who have done that, I
Yeah.
see guys at Gallatin, like so for our athletes, I think it's really a motivating factor and also something that can realistically be attained, not for all, but for a select few. It's something that they can visualize, that they can really visualize and see. Like there's been players come through Gallatin that have gone before me and have made that a reality. And so that has to be an awesome thing just to be so close to a program like that. On the basketball side of things, it's a little bit more difficult to attain that in the state of Montana right now. A Division I level, a Division I caliber basketball player on the boys side, on the
It is
boys
a
side.
little bit more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at both the rosters at Montana State and at Montana, and it's very seldom that you see, Montana high school athletes get to that level on the boys side of basketball.
No, it is, but I do love what all of Montana State does, and Montana does a good job of this too, of recruiting in state as much as they can.
Yeah.
And I think they all do a really good job of that, and I think that that's important at our highest schools that these kids do grow up loving, and especially in Bozeman, it being in their backyard.
Yeah, yeah, and not only are they recruiting in-state athletes, like some of our programs at Montana State are some of the best in the nation at their level, and
Right.
they're experiencing that success with Montana athletes on the court and on the field,
Yeah.
and on the track, like, and so it goes to show that that the work that's put in, that these programs are putting in at the high school level, it pays off. We've got athletes in the state. Just our pop, we don't have as many as you when you get outside and get to the bigger cities, but there are athletes in this state that are making a huge impact at that level.
100%. So my next question is a little bit about the basketball season because it's a little bit more of a grind. There's obviously just more games, more than one game per week a lot of times. So say your team gets off to, I don't know, a slow start or a mid-season lull. How do you as a coach motivate them to get them to the next level to where that's not the result at the end of the season?
Yeah. Well, it's, I would say, somewhat of a personal philosophy and something that I preach throughout the course of the season is, you know, the journey towards the postseason is to prepare you for that. And, we always try to keep our eyes on playing our best basketball in March, and so along the way, those are all experiences that you can learn and grow from, but we always try to keep our eyes on the prize, and that's of having our strongest finish when it matters the most. And so and we've had some of those moments where it was tough. It was tough to swallow some of the losses, but I do feel like our players have developed this sense of resiliency, and part of that comes from starting at the bottom.
Yeah.
Our first couple seasons, we were getting pushed around. We were getting bullied and step by step, we were forced to put in more work, to fight to put, to fight more on the floor. And then it helped us to evolve and to grow, I think, and grow into that mold sooner. And so we always try to keep our eyes, like I said, eyes on the prize, and really be focused on playing our best basketball when it matters the most and, being men of March.
That's great. So, for any young men that want to play for the Raptors that are not in high school yet, what is your what is your type of player that you want to have in the Raptors basketball program?
And yeah, that's something that I can be very direct about because we have, four pillars that have kind of shaped my philosophy and trying to develop the culture of our program. And and first and foremost, it's about having the right attitude, being a positive team guy first, being unselfish, being coachable. And these are the same principles that we bring to the table at our basketball camps in the summer when we run a fall league right now that we're currently hosting on Monday nights. But first and foremost is, bringing a positive attitude, being coachable, being a team first guy. And if you have that to start with, that's a great place to begin, and then second is the amount of time that we put into preparation, right? And so putting in the time on and off the court, right? Preparing yourself because at the double A level, and I think some even schools that are at the A and B level, like we have tryouts,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to play in one of the cut sports to make a team, so the preparation and the time that you spend in and out of the gym, developing your strength and your skills is imperative to becoming a Raptor. Um, Thirdly, I would say is like we love to play with great energy, and that's the fun part about it. The game is when you put the effort and you're playing with passion and energy on the floor. It gives you an opportunity to win on any given night and be competitive. So we like to bring in kids that are passionate about the game of basketball, play with great energy, and play and learn to love the game. And then lastly is it's a grind, like you said, 2 games a week, making that jump from middle school, AAU basketball to the high school level where now you're going 6 days a week. You're either practicing or playing a game Monday through Saturday, and you have Sundays are always off every now and then. You get a Saturday off, but being able to persevere,
Yeah.
and developing a tough mindset of perseverance where, middle of the season, you're in a slump, it's not going so great, but you still got to show up. You still got to show up every day and put in the work, So those are the type of players that we're looking to, and hopefully will be coming our way here in the next years. But that's what we really try to stress and develop in our program is just positive attitude, passion for the game, making sure that you're doing everything that you can to be prepared and then persevering through those struggles, those tough times, win or lose to get up and keep plugging away and moving forward.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Coach, for coming on and talking to us about Raptor basketball. I look forward to seeing you. I know you're going to make a couple trips to Billings, I'm sure, this year. So
Yeah.
I will make an effort to come to those games and see your guys' team.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Mitch. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. I know that you put a lot of time and effort into keeping the state informed with your podcast, and I'm sure that you even have some fans that are not in the state of Montana that tune in. So
Yeah,
I appreciate and respect very much what you're doing and for giving me the opportunity, the platform, and the voice to share a little bit of our program.
of course. Of course. I always like highlighting Bozeman as I told you early on. So this is great.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to making some trips. I know in January we start conference play, and yeah, I know it's going to be tough competition every time we come to Billings, but we look forward to embracing it and hopefully putting on a competitive game for the fans.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again so much.
You bet, Mitch.